Hey everyone, my name is Vince Gellman. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to speak a little bit more about the transgender movement, the transgender hype, the transgender hysteria, the social engineering, the social contagion of transgenderism. I'm going to speak more about it in this video, and I'm going to do it compassionately, respectfully. I'm going to bring in my professional lens as someone who has a lot of experience working with people as a healer, as a trauma-informed, attachment-informed healer. So I have thousands of hours of experience. I have lots of training that I've gone through. So I'm bringing in a compassionate, heartfelt perspective, a perspective based in common sense, really critical thinking, but I'll be wearing my professional toque as well in this video. So I want to begin by saying that my heart goes out to all the kids that are suffering right now. And I really do mean that. It is incredibly heartbreaking to see how many kids are being manipulated, they're being pressured, they're confused, they're scared. And the social engineering is coming from the school system, through TikTok, obviously from our government. It's become a politicized issue now, hasn't it? Transgenderism. It is truly a political issue because transgenderism, as I said in the last video, transgenderism is part of the transhumanist movement. It is a stepping stone towards transhumanism. They're trying to move humanity beyond gender. And so this is a stepping stone towards that. If you confuse people about their gender, well, they're more likely to adopt a more robotic, non-gender identity, right? Because that's where we're going. That's what the plan is to move us to a more hybrid species. So let's push this transgender ideology to get people to transition out of their very human biological identity and get them to be more identified with a automaton robot identity. So that's what they're doing in this very anti-life, anti-biology, anti-family, tyrannical, psychotic agenda that they have going and that they've planned for a long time. This has been in the plans for a long, long time. So my heart goes out to these kids because, boy, it's far more complicated. It's far more complex than when I was growing up and likely from when you were growing up. And my heart goes out to the parents. The parents are confused. They're scared. They're hearing their daughter or son talk about committing suicide. So they're dealing with suicidal ideation. The parents don't have the skills. The parents are dysregulated. They're stressed. They're under their own level of mind control. So it's coming from different angles all over the place. So what made me want to create this video was that last night I listened to a politician in Canada express his concern about laws that have just been passed in the province of Alberta in Canada, making it, in a nutshell, harder for kids to transition. And I support these laws 100%. But for this politician, he was upset. And he expressed concern because he talked about this is a matter of identity, this is a matter of suicidal kids, this is a matter of saving lives, right? This is the thing we hear. We hear about this is a matter of saving lives. Now, what I want you to understand right from the beginning is that anytime anyone expresses suicidal ideation, anytime anyone says, I'm thinking of killing myself, or I just might kill myself, we must take that seriously. Absolutely. So I do very much take seriously the suicidal ideation of kids. 100%. But here's what I don't take seriously at all, and that is so-called gender dysphoria. In other words, the suicidal ideation of these kids has absolutely fuck all to do with so-called gender dysphoria. They're not related, and I'm going to explain why. Gender dysphoria is a classification. It's a category. It's a label. It's a summary of symptomology. It's a summary of symptomology that does not in any way represent the deeper roots of this particular suffering that kids are going through. It doesn't address the roots. It takes the mental anguish and puts that particular kind of mental anguish into a particular disorder. So this is part of the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which has about 300 classifications of disorders. Others include attention deficit disorder, attention hyperactivity disorder. And last time I checked, there was obsessive compulsive disorder, although they change the names once in a while. I don't know if it's still the same. These are disorders. So what I'm proposing here is that it's actually more accurate for someone to say, I'm struggling with, than to say, I have. Meaning, it's more accurate for a kid to say, I'm struggling with confusion, I'm struggling with anxiety, I'm struggling with depression, I'm struggling with suicidal thoughts, versus saying, I have gender dysphoria. So let's look at ADHD. It is more accurate to say, I am struggling with the inability to focus than to say, I have ADHD. It's more accurate to say what you're experiencing in terms of symptoms than to give yourself this label and say, I have this. Because what happens is when we say I have gender dysphoria or I have ADHD, is what happens is that begins to become, if we're not careful, an identity. And this is what's happened, is that so many people, for example, with ADHD, is that they walk around almost like it's a badge of honor and they're happy they've discovered it. And now I feel better because I understand this is what's going on for me. And I have ADHD, but they identify with it now. And when I say badge of honor, what I'm basically trying to say is there's a way in which the unhealed victim consciousness of the individual grasps onto that label and uses it as a way to feed their victimhood. Look at me, poor me. I have ADHD, and this is just the way I am. So that's a very disempowered way to live. So when you say, I have this, versus I'm struggling with, we have to be careful because that can easily morph into, I am that. I am gender dysphoric. So what we're not doing, though, is we're not going to the roots of what's actually going on. And there's a little sentence that you can remember for yourself. It's 5 words, and that is, truth is in the roots. Truth is in the roots. And so, for instance, if we look at ADHD, actually, let's look at ADD, attention deficit disorder. The symptom is an inability to focus your attention, to hold your attention. You're restless. But the root might be that you didn't get the attention you needed when you were a child, meaning there was attachment wounding, meaning there was a deficit of attention. So the real cause of your attention deficit disorder comes from the root of a deficit of attention as a child, which created an attachment wound, which created a sense of insecurity. You following me? But you see, the powers that be, in particular, Big Pharma, don't want us going to the roots because it's in the roots that we heal. If we accept and settle for symptomology and classifications or labels, then we're more likely to become lifetime clients of theirs. We're going to keep taking medication. We're not going to go within and heal because it's not about the roots. It's about the symptoms. I have a chemistry imbalance in my brain. You see, part of the trick, part of the mind control is to have a sweeping umbrella category, which is mental illness, mental health, right? We say mental illness, mental health. And that is a scam. That is a lie. Because it's so much more than mental. It's so much more than psychology. It is nervous system. It is childhood trauma, birth trauma, in utero trauma. It's programming inherited from the collective. It's trauma and programming and predispositions for illness inherited from our ancestors. It's samskaras or soul scars inherited from past lives, also called parallel lives. It's trauma that occurred when we were 10, 12, 15. It's the social programming through the education system, through Hollywood, through violent video games. It's coming from all different places. There's so much psychological, physical warfare that's going on right now. As we know, all these chemicals that we're ingesting, the chemicals being sprayed on us, poisoning our food, fluoride in the water system, pharmaceuticals in the water system, is coming from all different places. There's many different reasons why someone would be unsettled in their system. Someone would feel confused, scared, suicidal. It's far more than mental disorder, mental illness, mental. I mean, so it's not about chemistry in the brain. You can't just limit it to that. It's so much more. But you see, if we make it about chemical imbalance, if we make it about brain chemistry, well, then we can provide the medical solution that is addictive, that costs money. We can provide that so-called solution. We can give you chemicals for your chemical imbalance. They don't want us going to the roots. They don't want us going to truth. In the same way the dark forces ruling this planet don't want us going to truth. Their business is lies. Lies. Right? Truth is in the roots. So this has nothing to do with gender dysphoria. That's just a label. It is more accurate. It's more compassionate to ourselves to say, I'm struggling with. And then what happens is that we can go a bit deeper. A good healer, a good therapist, will take that person deeper. So we start at the level of, I'm confused about my gender. That's true. But that's still a symptom. Let's go deeper. Where does that come from? Well, maybe it comes from, let's go back to attachment theory, that you didn't get your attachment needs when you were a child met. You didn't get your attachment needs met when you were a child. You experienced various forms of insecure attachment. You didn't feel safe. You didn't feel loved. You didn't feel held. You didn't feel heard. You didn't feel nourished. You adapted by becoming avoidant, or you adapted by becoming ambivalent or preoccupied. You had this adaptive style of coping with the lack of secure bonding, the lack of secure loving connection, the lack of the secure loving we that attachment-driven children need to survive and thrive, and what they need for a healthy, secure identity. That's the key piece here, everyone. A secure attachment, meaning a secure bond, a connection with at least one primary attachment figure. A secure attachment fosters a secure identity. So important you understand that. Let's flip that around. An insecure attachment, meaning an unstable, unreliable, toxic, scary, violent relationship with your parents, an insecure attachment in the family system fosters an insecure identity. Get it? Secure attachment fosters secure identity. Insecure attachment fosters insecure identity. That's how important attachment is. So when you hear parents say, "Oh, my kid just wants attention." No, no, no. Your child needs attachment, connection, bonding, and yes, attention. It's about survival. It's key for their development, for their learning. Let's stop saying, "Oh, they're just wanting attention." That's disrespectful. That's not honoring the needs of the child. So let me be clear that when a child has an insecure identity due to insecure attachment, what's going to happen then? When the child has an insecure identity, well, they might start looking for a new identity. They might start looking for ways to be somebody else. Get it? I want to be somebody else. And now you have this absolute onslaught of transgender propaganda coming from all directions, including the school system, TikTok, the government. Remember, this is the transhumanist agenda. This is not about taking care of a child's gender affirming care. It's not about care at all. So the child then thinks, I want to be somebody else. And if I have a different body, I'll be happier. And here's what I want you to know is that, and I don't need scientific evidence to prove this, but the treatment of puberty blockers, hormone treatments, invasive, mutilating, deeply tragic, and in my opinion, satanic surgery that makes people become lifetime clients of Big Pharma, this is common sense. You don't need science for this. This is common sense. And any good therapist will tell you the same thing. That will not heal the roots of gender dysphoria. In other words, it won't make the confusion and the anxiety go away. It's a Band-Aid. So you see these people on TikTok and they're all happy because they're transitioning and they're saying, I'm so much more happy, I'm empowered, that's just all a game. That's a show. That's one big ass lie. Meanwhile, the pain is still there. The same thing that drove them to do all these radically disturbing things to their body, because it takes a great amount of pain to make that decision, that same pain is there. Think about that. How much pain is needed to drive someone to say yes to that much pain? Because these are painful procedures. Parents need to know what I'm talking about. Nurses, surgeons, clinics, politicians need to know this. Now, here's another little piece of information that's not little at all. It's a big piece. It's an important piece. And that is this. We should know now, given what's going on in the world and given who rules our world, that there is a huge, on this planet, which is a very, very dark planet in the cosmos. There's many, many planets. This is only one. It's a very dark planet. And it is rife with perverse, satanic, pedophilic consciousness, hence the child trafficking enterprises. There's a thick web, a dark web of sexual perverted consciousness on this planet. And what this does is that it creates the statistic that you can easily find for yourself that says, and this is a piece of research I do support, and that is 1 in 4 girls have been sexually abused and 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused. 1 in 4 girls have been sexually abused. 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused. And I actually think that the numbers might be higher because so many people, and I'm one of them, I was one of them, don't have the memory. I didn't have the memory of what happened to me when I was a kid. I completely forgot. The memories actually started coming to me when I was in my 40s of being sexually abused. So when you're walking up and down the street, you're likely walking by people who have been sexually abused, who were sexually abused, and they've completely forgotten about it. So when someone is carrying unprocessed sexual trauma, something happens. And let me go a bit back in time to childhood. Sexual abuse on a child is one of the most devastating, if not the most devastating thing a child can go through. Given the satanic rituals going on out there with children, I mean, that's an entirely different level. But it goes without saying that sexual abuse on a child is absolutely devastating. Now, what does this do? And it's kind of not, it's easy to explain and it's not easy to explain. But what it does is that it perverts the consciousness of the child. It warps it, it twists it. And I call this perverse reverse. So what happens is that the consciousness begins to flip, twist, turn, and so the identity begins to flip, twist, turns. It reverses to such a degree that now that perverted consciousness compels someone to want to become a different gender. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying that everybody who wants to transition has been sexually abused. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this is one of the core factors. And remember how many people on this very perverse planet, how many people have been sexually abused. This consciousness is rife out there. This consciousness is rife. It's huge. So you have so many children who are being sexually abused. Going back in time, it's creating a reversal of orientation, and this is adding to the transgender mix, the transgender hysteria. So these are a couple of reasons. These are a couple of roots. But let me add a little bit more general things that are roots, not symptoms. Okay. We have beliefs. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I am bad. I am wrong. It's my fault. I'm flawed, I'm a sinner. Some of this comes from religious programming, religious trauma. So this contributes to the self-shame program, to the I'm not good enough as I am program, and maybe if I'm somebody else, I'll be happier program, somebody else. And this, again, this is bigger than this lifetime, my friends. You know, we don't arrive here an empty slate, a blank slate. We're carrying stuff from past lives, which are really parallel lives. We have the ancestral inheritance as well. There's a lot of things going on that create this orientation, this tendency to be susceptible to the propaganda. Now, again, we must remember that this is all taken off in the last 4 years. This transgender hype wasn't wasn't going on prior to 4 years ago. It was, people were getting transgender surgery, they were transitioning, but it just exploded right around the beginning of the COVID era. And as I said in the last video, this is no coincidence. COVID, border crisis, Ukraine war, transgenderism, it's all part of the psyop. It's all part of the larger plan that's moving in quicker now. But why I'm saying this to you is that if we go back in time, it wasn't an issue. This wasn't an issue at all. I mean, I grew up, I had, remember the Cabbage Patch dolls? I had a Cabbage Patch doll, and I love my Cabbage Patch doll. And my mom and dad didn't look at me cuddling up to the Cabbage Patch doll and say, oh, shit, we need to call the transgender doctor, nurse, we need to get him on the hormones and the we need to get his bits chopped off. No, thank God they didn't do that. I got my bits still, and I'm a man, and I'm happy to be a man. And back then there were tomboys, right? Tomboys, which really means a girl who, I guess she acted like a boy. Really, that's false. She's a girl who just acted as she felt she needed to. Rough and tumble, adventurous, risk-taking. It's really a poor thing to call a girl a tomboy. She's just being herself and having fun. Now, was there the same kind of response? Was there this, oh shit, my daughter's a tomboy and we need to, there wasn't that response. And if we took 1,000 of those tomboys today, let's say they're now 40, 50, 60 years old, and we interviewed 1,000 of them, 1,000 women today who were once tomboys, and if we said to all of them, if we asked them the question, how many of you are happy you're a woman, I would guess all of them would say that. 1,000 would say, I'm happy to be a woman. So it's become a social contagion now. It's become a problem because of the absolute huge, it's a machine of propaganda. It's being so pushed onto children, pushed onto families, pushed into the school system. It's becoming part of the school curriculum. It is horrific, which is why I feel called to make this video. I really want to set this record straight that the truth is in the roots. And so if you heal those roots, if you heal the trauma, you heal the programming, if you heal the whatever the source of those shadows might be, whether again it's in utero, birth, developmental, ancestral, past life, collective programming, whatever it might be, if you transmute, heal those roots, so what happens is the symptoms dissolve. The symptoms of suicidal ideation, the confusion, the anxiety, it begins to melt. It melts because you're pulling the weed out at the root. You're not just cutting it, you're getting to the root. But the thing is that politicians don't know this, parents don't know this. They don't know what's really happening. And again, big pharma, those in power don't want us to know this. They don't want us to heal. They want us to buy into symptomology. They want us to buy into classifications and categories and disorder and the illusion of mental illness. They want that. They don't want us empowered. They don't want us looking at truth, period, whatever the category might be. They don't want us speaking truth. That's disinformation, right? For the powers that be, I'm speaking disinformation right now. It's truth. So truth is a threat to the powers that be. Truth is a threat to the money machine. But truth is liberation. The truth sets us free. The truth will set children free. It'll set the anxious, scared, confused parent free. And so what children need is they need to do their healing work. And ideally, the parents need to do their healing work as well. But more so, they obviously need to go through puberty. It's so important. You know, puberty is coming of age. It's a rite of passage. It's a sacred rite of passage. This is why in traditional societies throughout the world, their initiations for young people would take place around 13 years old, when they're 13 years old, because that's the coming of age. That's when they're blossoming. That's when they're transitioning from boy to man, girl to woman. And puberty is a absolutely vital rite of passage for our cognitive, psychological, biological development. If you block puberty, you're actually impairing cognitive development, biological development, psychological development. You're impairing the system, the organs, the bones. The body develops. There's a quickening that happens during that time. It's a sacred rite of passage. But because the dark forces are in the business of not just disempowering us, but murdering us, they're in the business of maiming and murdering us. They don't want us to go through that rite of passage. They want numb, dumb, stupid, sick, dead people as part of their eugenics depopulation plan. So this is real. This is true. And what I want to say to you is that imagine a young person in a clinic and they're having these painful procedures done, especially imagine the mutilating surgeries. I tell you what, that is satanic ritual abuse. Satanic ritual abuse doesn't just happen in their trafficking enterprises, in their underground tunnel systems, or in their mansions, in their mansion parties. This is an extension. This is them conducting satanic ritual abuse via everyday citizens. It is sick and twisted, and I invite you to see it as satanic ritual abuse. It is a satanic act. And people don't see it, they don't see the propaganda, and they're not standing up and protecting children because they're not willing to educate themselves, number one, and because they haven't done the work. They haven't gone inside. They haven't gone into their own shadows. They haven't felt their own pain and healed their own pain. So they don't know. They don't have the emotional, psychological, somatic intelligence, the heart knowing, the inner wisdom to know what's going on. But honestly, everyone, there are so many people out there, blue-collar people who've never drunk kombucha before, have never sipped on organic peppermint tea, who've never laid on a yoga mat, meditated, been to a spiritual retreat. There's so many people out there, everyday blue-collar folks who see it as satanic. They've done no inner work on themselves, but they got something called common sense, and they got a compassionate heart. And they're strong, proud, capable, loving, fierce, protective parents. They're citizens of their community, of their state, province, country. They're citizens of the world, and they stand up to tyranny. So it does help to do your inner work. It does help to educate yourself. I'm making this video to educate, but honestly, everyone, it's just common sense. It's common sense. It's common sense. And so truth is in the roots, everyone. Let's not get caught up in these labels, these classifications. Let's not get caught up in the mental illness, mental disorder, mental disease, brain chemistry imbalance propaganda. Let's get away from I have this disorder, to I am struggling with these symptoms, confusion, anxiety, fear, stress, and then we go deeper. We take those symptoms and we go deeper. Let's get to the roots. Let's go into the body. Let's go into the heart. Let's regulate the nervous system. Let's do deep healing at the genetic level, at the neurobiological level as a whole, at the soul level. The work I do now, I used to have a full practice. I was a registered somatic therapist, trauma-informed, attachment-informed. I had a full thriving practice. I'm a certified biodynamic breath worker, and I walked away from everything. I'm no longer registered. I had to give up my designation. And now I lead online healing and activation ceremonies. And children have to be minimum of 9 years old to participate. But I'll put a link in the description, and I got some ceremonies coming up next weekend, and you're welcome to check out that information. But I do that work now because I can reach more people. I can reach people more powerfully. The healings are much, much more powerful. They go to the quantum roots. I'm transmitting very, very powerful Christ light, Buddha light, starlight, however you want to call it, a pure, pure stream. And you can check out the feature video in my YouTube channel and you'll learn more about it. Check out the testimonials. I'm here to be of service as best I can. And I really hope that this video has been of support. Please like, share, subscribe, leave your comments, click notifications, all that jazz, and take good care.